It's time for Rabbi Minkowicz's Weekly Torah Lesson, a place where life's most difficult questions are answered. Here with his spiritual perspective and insight, Rabbi Minkowicz.
Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Tisa. The question is, should a person do a mitzvah if you're not in the mood? So in this week's Torah portion, we learn about the mitzvah of machzis hashekel. That is, where every single Jew gave a half a shekel to the temple, and this machzis hashekel that was given was unique, that it was mandatory. In other words, when it came to a sacrifice, a person can give more, a person can give less, a person can give bigger, he can give smaller. And a person gives, as the Torah says specifically, mirtzoinoi. When you give a sacrifice, it has to come from your will. If you give a forced sacrifice, it's not a sacrifice. The idea of a sacrifice, you're sacrificing, you're giving it from your will. Here, the Torah says, machzis hashekel, everyone had to give the same amount. So, Rashi tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu was perplexed with this mitzvah of machzis hashekel. He didn't know what it was. So, it says in the Medrash that God took out a machzis hashekel, a coin that was a half a shekel, but was made out of ash, out of fire. And he showed it to Moshe Rabbeinu. And he says, this is what they should give. So the question is, Moshe Rabbeinu did not know what a half a shekel was. And secondly, what is it showing him a coin of fire? So the Rebbe explains a powerful insight, and that's as follows. Moshe Rabbeinu knew that when it came to the temple, as we said before, when you gave a sacrifice, you had to give from your own free will. You had to want to give it. That's why it's a sacrifice. Here you're making a donation to the temple, and what are we saying? Everyone has to give. What happens if someone doesn't want to give? And they're not interested in giving? Or they specifically don't want to give. But nevertheless, it's a mandatory. Everyone had to give. And it was like a tax. But Moshe Rabbeinu was wondering, a tax for, street repairs is one thing, but to bring to the temple for sacrifices a half a shekel should be a tax? That should be a voluntary thing. How is that even going to go into the temple? And God took out a machzis shekel made out of fire to show him that when a Jew gives a machzis shekel, when a Jew gives a half a coin, a half a dollar, whatever he gives, even though sometimes he doesn't want to give it, but it has the same fire as when he wants to give it. Because the important thing is that he's giving, and as long as he's giving, it comes from the fire of a Jew. So to answer the question, should a person do a mitzvah if you're not inspired? Absolutely. Because even though you're not inspired, it's still a beautiful mitzvah and it creates a connection with God. This week's Torah lesson is dedicated to the memory of Baruch ben Aryeh Leib and Shlomo Ben Yosef. May their souls be elevated for the Torah we're studying in their memory. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. For more information about Chabad and a regular schedule of classes, please see our website.